بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ولا شبيه ولا مثيل له ولا ضد ولا ند ولا جسد ولا صورة ولا أعضاء له كان الله ولا مكان فهو الآن على ما عليه كان فلا تضربوا لله الأمثال ولله المثل الأعلى تنزه ربي عن الجلوس والقعود وعن الحركة والسكون وعن الاتصال والانفصال لا يحل فيه شيء ولا ينحل منه شيء ولا يحل هو في شيء لأنه ليس كمثله شيء مهما تصورت ببالك فالله لا يشبه ذلك ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله ونبيه وصفيه وحبيبه وخليله أرسله الله هدى ورحمة للعالمين هاديا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا وهاجا وقمرا منيرا اللهم صل وسلم وأعظم وأنعم وأكرم على هذا النبي الكريم كلما ذكره الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا عظيم الجاه. I praise Allah, I glorify Him and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated to give anything. And I ask Allah Ta'ala to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and to protect His Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah Ta'ala, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne like the Christians say, and He is not attributed with fatigue like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala is different than that. And whoever attributes an attribute in the creation to Allah is not a Muslim. And I testify that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and His final prophet and messenger sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything He conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, we remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deeds, seeking the acceptance of Allah only and not the praise of the people. Allah Ta'ala revealed in Surah Qaf, in verse number 18 of Surah Qaf, ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد. In this ayah, Allah Ta'ala has informed us that there is nothing that is said except that it is recorded and documented by Raqib and Atid. And in this ayah specifically, the saying is mentioned because most of the sins or most of the actions of the human being are from his tongue. And this is something that we can tangibly see, that we can tangibly witness, that most people, they like to run their mouth. And because it's easy to do. You can do it while lying down. You can do it while sitting down. You can do it while you are, you can multitask. You can do it while you're watching something. You can do it while you're listening to something. It's something that most people, they do very easily. And that's another concept which is confirmed in Islam, which is that the majority of the sins of the human, they come from his tongue. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَكْثَرُ خَطَايَ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ لِسَانِهِ, which means that most of the sins of the human, they come from his tongue. Because it's easy to move the tongue. And a lot of people, most people, or a lot of people I'll say, a lot of people, they have a propensity, they have a tendency, they have an inclination, they have a desire within themselves to talk. Just to talk. Whether they say anything that is beneficial or not, whether it is something that it is something that helps people or not, they find that they want to just speak. They find that they want to just run or just say things. Just say whatever that they want to say. And most of the things that a person would say, and if they are not a God-fearing Muslim, if they are not a pious Muslim, most of the things that they would say are forbidden things. As the Prophet ﷺ informed us, أَكْثَرُ خَطَايَ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ لِسَانِهِ. And as is evidenced in the verse, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ, which means that everything that is said, it is recorded and documented by Raqib and Atid. So what does that mean? It means that why was the saying, what people say, why were words that are said, why was it mentioned specifically in the verse and not everything else? Because as we know from other verses and from other hadiths, we are accountable for what we do with our body parts, for our deliberate bodily movements, and we are accountable for our deliberate thoughts and intentions. But in this ayah, it's only mentioned that whatever you say, it is recorded by Raqib and Atid. And it's not mentioned that what deliberate movement that you make or whatever deliberate intention that you make is recorded by Raqib and Atid, although that is the case. So everything that you do deliberately, everything that you do while you're conscious and you're awake and you're aware, it is recorded by Raqib and Atid. Even though it's not mentioned here in the verse, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. It doesn't say مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ وَمِنْ عَمَلٍ وَمِنْ نِيَّةٍ. Although the meaning is that all these things are recorded by Raqib and Atid, and specifically the qawl was specified because it is the action that people most do. So in this ayah in the Quran, مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ, it means there is nothing that is said except that it is recorded and documented by Raqib and Atid. So specifically the saying was mentioned. Now that doesn't exclude, it doesn't mean that Raqib and Atid, that they don't also record and document the deliberate actions that you do with your hands and your feet, for example, or the deliberate intentions and thoughts that you have with your heart. Because it is true, Raqib and Atid, they do record and document everything. Raqib and Atid, they are constantly with you, except in certain scenarios. But in the scenarios where they're not physically present with you, Allah Ta'ala lets them know what you did, and they'll record it and they'll document it as such. And so it's important for the person to be conscious of that, to be aware of that. Why? Because that is accountability. That is being conscious and aware of what you're doing and what you are saying and what you are thinking and what your intention is. That is the accountability. And that verse from the Quran, it proves that accountability that we said. And there's another verse from the Quran that proves this accountability. And it is the verse from Surah Al-Isra, which tells us explicitly about that we are judged for what we do with our other body parts. That we are judged for what we do with our hearts. That we are judged for what we do with our senses, like our hearing and like our sight. And we are not just entitled to do with our senses, with our physical senses, whatever it is that we desire. So in ayah 36 of Surah Al-Isra, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. Which means that do not speak that which you do not know. Do not speak without knowledge. Indeed, the hearing and the sight and the heart, all of those the human being is responsible for. All of those the human being is accountable for. That is the accountability. Now, what are these? Now, specifically, who is the accountable person Islamically? Who is the accountable person? The sane, pubescent, and the person who's received the basic message of Islam. So, some accountable people, they are Muslims, and some accountable people are not Muslims. So let's talk about both of these two in detail. Let's first talk about the non-Muslims. The non-Muslims, they're born to Christian parents or Jewish parents or whatever, atheist parents or Satanist parents, whatever it is that their parents follow. And that baby, when he comes out of the mother's womb, his heart is empty. He doesn't have anything inside of it. He has no knowledge of anything. He doesn't know how to do anything. Doesn't believe anything. He doesn't have a creed. However, because he was born to Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or atheist or Satanist parents, then he is categorized with them by association. So because they were born to Christian parents, it's considered a Christian baby. Because they were born to Christian parents. So that baby, as it grows and gets older and it becomes indoctrinated and it becomes influenced by its environment, because the child, as anyone who studies this concept or this part of this branch of education, which is like childhood development, everybody knows that the child is like an empty vessel, and usually whatever you pour into it, that's what the child will become as it grows older. So if you pour negativity into the child, it will manifest that negativity. If you pour positivity and goodness into the child, then usually the case is that it will manifest that goodness and positivity. So, but that child still, when it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, it's still not pubescent. So you have a child that's, we assume, is sane, that they have the faculty of their mind, but they're not pubescent yet. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, when they become 15 lunar years of age, they become pubescent. If they didn't become pubescent before that, by seeing their mani or by seeing their menstruation, if they were female. So now they're pubescent at 15. Now that Christian child has been growing up and most likely has been exposed to going to church and to blasphemy and to all types of evil. And so that's what the child will have in his heart when it becomes pubescent. Once that happens now, now this child is pubescent, now this child has things in his heart, has beliefs in his heart, but still this person is not accountable. They're saying they're pubescent, but they have not reached being accountable. Why? Because one last condition is missing. They still have yet to receive the basic message of Islam. Once they receive the basic message of Islam, now they are accountable. What does that mean? Let's give a specific scenario. Usually the norm is that a person going through this life, he will only know some things by coming into contact with them. So if this person, he just has been living in his own orbit and his own bubble and his own surroundings, he's got his whatever surroundings that he has, he's not exposed to Islam. Unless he is either living around Muslims or among Muslims, or he has contact with Muslims, he's most likely not going to hear about Islam. He might hear the word Islam, he might hear about crazy terrorists and things like that, but he won't hear nothing deserves to be worshipped except the Creator and Muhammad is his messenger. Usually that's the case. Usually the case is that the person who does not have contact with Muslims, that only sees of Islam what appears in the media or in the news or whatever, unless the person goes and searches, usually they won't receive the basic message. No one deserves to be worshipped except the Creator and Muhammad is his messenger, usually. Unless this person comes into contact with a Muslim. So you have a sane person that's pubescent. Let's give them an age. Let's say they're 30 years old, but they have yet to receive the basic message of Islam because they haven't come into contact with any Muslims. But let's say one day they meet a Muslim at their job or at their school or wherever, at whatever place that they frequent socially. They go to the same Starbucks, and the guy behind the register happens to be, his name is Ahmed, and he's from a Muslim country, and he is, he develops a rapport with this guy, and then they start talking, etc., and then he tells them about Islam. Whatever the case may be, he tells that person, that sane and pubescent, he tells them that no one deserves to be worshipped except the Creator and Muhammad is his messenger. Now this person is accountable. Now this person, there's a list of things that they're obligated to do. And the first thing that they're obligated to do immediately, without delay, is become Muslim. So when we ask the question, what is accountability? That, on that level, for that context and that scenario, that is accountability. So that non-Muslim, he's been going through his life, doing his daily things. He's gotten used to eating bacon every day in the morning and having a 12-pack of beers with his friends on Friday night or on Sunday for the football game. Whatever type of bad, evil habit that this person has developed throughout his life as a kafir, as a non-Muslim, now the first step in his accountability is he has to become Muslim. That's it, right away, without delay. No time to think about it, no time to dwell on it, no time to ponder about it, no time to go and do research, no time to go and take a bath, no time to go and ask around and think about it and ponder and reflect. No, it's something that you have to do right now. That's the accountability. What's the link? What's the connection? The connection is what we said. Nothing deserves to be worshipped except the Creator. So we said that he was a Christian, and what he worships is a creation. So in that statement right there, there's enough for him to know that, that there's accountability for that. You can't worship a creation. You're not entitled. You thought it was normal. You thought it was fine. You thought it was okay. You thought it was just something that people do. No, you can't do it. It's bad. It's the biggest sin to worship a creation. You worship a man, although he is an honored prophet, Prophet Jesus alayhi salam, a prophet of Islam, just like all the prophets. But it's invalid to worship a creation. And the same example applies to the Jew, because they worship something that gets tired. They admit that themselves. We didn't make it up. We didn't put words in their mouth. They're the ones who say that. And you can see them still, that they adhere to that. They believe that God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and then he got tired and rested and needed to rest. So whatever rests then is a creation. Therefore, it doesn't deserve to be worshipped. Same thing, the Buddhists, they worship an actual person named Buddha, and they have actual statues, and they come in different shapes, and it's an ugly thing. It's an ugly statue. It is an ugly image, but they worship it. and they put fruits there, they burn incense, they do whatever types of things, we tell them this is invalid. Then you have the people that they worship other types of statues, then you have people that worship animals. All these things are creations. It's invalid to worship. That's how the accountability links to that. Because you can't do that. It's something that you can't do. It's something that you're not entitled to do. It's something that you're not allowed to do. It's something that should not be done. So the accountability as it relates to that individual is realizing that and knowing that and changing that. Erasing the blasphemy from his heart, erasing the blasphemy from his life, and admitting and confessing and uttering no one deserves to be worshipped except the Creator, and Muhammad is his messenger. Now the second part of the Shahada, Muhammad is his messenger, it just means that this person, he has to know that there was a man named Muhammad who was born in the Arabian Peninsula, specifically in the city of Mecca, in the year of the elephant. He received the revelation and he's the final prophet. And everything that he said is truthful of the revelation. Everything that he conveyed in the revelation is 100% true. There is not even an inkling of doubt about it. So whatever reaches that person, that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, we have to believe it, we have to take it. Despite what anybody else says. Bottom line. Now just as an important side note, for those who are seasoned in the knowledge, for those that know or have had experience teaching or coming across new people, this lets you know that you have to take into account the threshold of the person that you are speaking to. The threshold of the person that you are speaking to. If you know that they can only handle this much information, that's all that you tell them. You just tell them about the Creator and how He doesn't resemble the creations, and you tell them how Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, he's the final prophet and messenger, and we have to believe in him. And don't tell him anything else. If he can't handle hearing about that alcohol is forbidden, don't tell him. If you think that, if you have that sense, you don't get into that yet. Don't talk about that yet. Do you think that this person can't handle hearing about that eating pork is forbidden? Don't mention it. Don't start listing things now, telling this person, because this person's whole life is made up of those things. It's made up of eating pork and eating haram meat and drinking alcohol and fornicating and gambling and doing all types of bad things. But for now, what you want is for this person to just know this little bit. And to believe that little bit. To believe that no one deserves to be worshipped except the Creator and Muhammad is his messenger. If that's where the threshold is. If that's all that they can handle, you give them that amount of information only, and then you tell them to say the Shahada, and you hope that they remain steadfast to that little bit, to that minimum bit. Because if they do, and then they die that way, they have a chance for mercy. But if you overwhelm them, they might crumble under that pressure, or they might not be able to handle that because they still are in the process of getting purified by the correct creed. So that's an important side note, is that you treat each person at the level of accountability that they are and the threshold. But the minimum that they have to worship the Creator only, and that they have to believe in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was a prophet and that he came with that everything that he came with is true, and that everything that he conveyed in the revelation is true. That part, you stick to it. That part, you keep on going to it. You keep on saying it. That part, you keep on mentioning it, because that's what it's related to, the accountability. You feel like you want this person to have the same goodness that you know Islam is. You know that the goodness that Islam brings, you want that person to have that, which is to enter paradise. And you don't want, obviously, people to worship creations, because obviously creations don't deserve to be worshipped. So that's for that level of accountability, how it links to that person. For that person that is a non-Muslim who had just become accountable, same person, just received the basic message, he has to first embrace Islam immediately. Then after that, he has to adhere to the rules and comply with the laws of Islam. So that's the first scenario. The second scenario, dealing with the Muslim. Same thing with the Muslim. The Muslim who was born to Muslim parents, also that Muslim, that newborn baby Muslim, his heart is empty. He doesn't have anything in his heart. He comes out of the womb not knowing anything. And as he grows, etc., then he's like a container that gets filled. Usually his Muslim parents, if they were God-fearing people, then the things that would be instilled in that young Muslim heart would be good things and pure things, and love for the religion, and love for the knowledge, and love for the goodness, and love for the Prophet ﷺ, and not just left to be poisoned and corrupted by the propaganda of what they call popular culture and what's trending, because really it is toxic and poisonous, and it does have a bad influence on many children. But still, that Muslim child then grows up, and then, so they're sane, and then they become pubescent. So they are already accountable from the moment they become pubescent. Why is it like that for the Muslim? Because the Muslim, and the one who was born to Muslim parents, he already has heard the basic message about Islam. He already has heard no one deserves to be worshipped except the Creator, Muhammad is his messenger. So the only thing that's left for the accountability of the Muslim, the one who's born to Muslim parents, is just to become pubescent if he's already sane. So as for the Muslim, the accountability, that Muslim, now he has been growing up having a certain background, knowing that there's certain things that are forbidden, knowing that there's certain things that are permissible, knowing that there's certain things that are recommended, knowing that there's certain things that are disliked, knowing that there are certain things that are considered good manners, knowing that there are certain things that are considered bad manners, knowing that there's certain virtues and certain lofty morals that the Muslim aspires to. So for that Muslim, who has become pubescent, who has now entered into accountability, his thing, how accountability is linked to him, is obeying the rules. Is obeying the rules for that Muslim. Now, speaking about the Muslim, he has a certain status above non-Muslims. And this is something that is evidenced in the Quran. It is something that is proven in the Quran in more than one verse. It's known that those who are Muslim and they do good deeds, that they are the best of the creations. Those who are Muslims and they do good deeds are the best of the creations. And the non-Muslims, they are the worst. They are the worst of the creations. But among the Muslims, there is a spectrum of goodness and, I would say, not goodness. So within the spectrum of Islam, as far as being judged as Muslim, there is a spectrum of excellency and greatness and perfection and ideal, and then there is a spectrum of being deficient and falling short and being not good. So when we're having this conversation, we're not talking about the creed of this person. The Muslim is the Muslim is the Muslim. The Sunni Muslim, he has the best creed, and just by the virtue of that creed, he has a certain status and sanctity. Meaning that just because someone is Muslim, then they have a certain level, a certain status. That they deserve a certain amount of respect, they deserve a certain amount of honor, they deserve a certain amount of being taken care of. So because the sanctity of the Muslim is greater than the sanctity of the Kaaba to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala judged that the sanctity of the Muslim is greater than the sanctity of the Kaaba. What does that mean? That means that the Muslim is more honored than the Kaaba to Allah Ta'ala. So just from the aspect of the creed, the Muslim has a certain status, a certain honor that he gets. So when we're having this conversation right now about accountability, we're not talking about the Muslim's creed. And we're keeping in mind that the Muslim, he has this certain honor and this certain respect, so that nobody gets confused about when I'm talking about accountability. So the accountability for the Muslim, we said, it starts after he would be sane. He's born and he grows up sane and he has a mind. And he's already received the basic message of Islam, because ever since before, and when he was young, ever since he's like able to say words, his parents are, saying these things, and he's, growing up in that environment and coming to the lessons. How many times have our children heard the Shahada? How many times have our children heard, no one deserves to be worshipped except the Creator, Muhammad is his messenger, for example? So they've received the basic message. They go to an Islamic school, they know these things, so our children, they receive the basic message already. So they have 2 out of the 3 conditions for accountability, to become accountable. Then the third is just becoming pubescent. And a child might, or a Muslim might become accountable at the age of 13, might become accountable at the age of 14, might become accountable at the age of 12. But the highest, or the maximum, is the age of 15. And to some people, or many people nowadays, they would consider like a 15-year-old like a baby. But in Islam, the accountability starts at maximum from that age for the Muslim, 15 years old. What does that tell you? What does that teach us about Islam? It teaches that in Islam, we value these responsibilities, because accountability, it is connected to responsibility. Because accountability means that you're going to be held responsible for this. And imagine, you're going to be held responsible for what? That's why I started with the ayah. مَا يَلْفِظُ مِن قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. Have you ever heard a 15-year-old talking? Have you ever heard a 15-year-old talking? And when he's not around authority figures. Have you heard what they say? For the Muslim, that he understands the concept of accountability, then he would be careful. But look at what the majority of 15-year-olds today, what they're saying, and what they're talking about, and what songs that they are repeating, and what things that they are being influenced by, and what so-called influencers they are imitating. In Islam, the accountability, it teaches you that whatever you say, whatever you actively think in your heart, and whatever you actively have the intention about, whatever deliberate action, deliberate word that you say, you are accountable for it. There are 2 angels that record it and write it down. 2 angels that record it and write it down. It's not like one of these like cameras that if it's at a certain angle, whatever, the image is grainy, and sometimes you can't even use it for like in a court, because the image you can't really see, and there's too much doubt. Was it really the person? No, these are angels that are recording everything. Exactly what you say, the exact words, and the actions, and where it took place, etc. And nothing slips through the cracks. There's no like things that slide through that don't get accounted for. That don't get recorded. So for the Muslim, it is something important. And this accountability, to be conscious and aware. It's not like you can somehow make yourself think that you're not accountable. It's not like you can try to pretend as if I'm just saying this, I'm just doing this, I'm just doing this movement with my hand, I'm just having this thought with my heart. That would be something that is, I don't know, for me it would be hard to do. It would be hard to ignore the fact that every single deliberate action, saying thing, it is recorded. It is recorded. Every single thing. And that does not, it's not factored in what the reason for you doing that. It's not factored in. So with accountability comes clarity. With accountability comes clarity. Because as human beings, we do feel emotions. As human beings, we do go through these things. We do feel anger. We do feel happiness. We do feel sadness. We do feel pain. We do feel offense. But accountability tells us that because of what I'm feeling, or because of this, whatever it is, I still have to make sure that I don't do any injustice. Because I'm responsible. That's the meaning of the ayah. One of the second ayah that I recited. كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا. كل أولئك. All of that. The hearing, yani what you let inside of your ear, what you hear, what you use your hearing for, what you use your sense of hearing for, and your sight, what you use your sense of sight for. So sometimes it's not even something that is an action that it has an outward result. Because like when you speak, your voice is heard, the sound waves and things like that. And when you, let's say, move your hand or whatever, there is an external effect. But when you're just looking at something, when you're just hearing something, there's no external effect. You're not affecting something else. Something is affecting you. Something is coming into you. Something is entering into you by using your sense of hearing and your sense of sight. But in the ayah it says, كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. All of that He's responsible for. Yani you're responsible for what goes inside your ear? You're responsible for what goes inside your eye? Yes, you're responsible for what goes inside your ear, and you're responsible for what goes inside your eye. To that extent, accountability, it is a priority. To that extent, accountability it has a link to clarity. To that extent, accountability, it gives that person the awareness. The person, they can't pull the wool over their own eyes and think that there is none, but there is. Now, you have some people in this world that they have a certain method in dealing with accountability, and this is something that is an Islamic teaching. It is, and what I'm about to say, it is an Islamic teaching. It is a principle of Islam, of al-Islam. Save yourself first. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم. In this ayah it says, oh you Muslims, save yourselves and your families. It didn't say save your families and yourselves. And it put yourself first. Meaning, save yourself first. Save yourself from what? From having the least popular social media page? No! From having the worst car on the market? No! From having the smallest house? No! That's not what you're supposed to be saving yourself from. You're supposed to be saving yourself from hell. That's what the ayah says. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. A fire. Yani the term nara in this ayah is in the form of nakira. It's indefinite. And this is to the point of that is a tool of eloquence to show the enormity, the magnitude of this fire. Nara وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. That is fueled by people and stones. And He saved yourself from hellfire. How do you save yourself from hellfire? By obeying Allah, by not committing sins. And sins, this term is interchangeable with injustice. Because a sin is either violating a right of God or violating a right of man. That's what a sin is. A sin is violating a right of God, meaning something that God made forbidden that you cannot do, and even to yourself. And then there's something that is a violation of the right of man. For example, like stealing somebody's property. This is a sin. It's violating a right of man because you're not allowed to steal somebody's property. You're killing unjustly. This is violating a right of man because you can't just kill somebody unjustly. There are certain sins that are just like violating what Allah Ta'ala ordered. Like for example, not praying. When you don't do the obligatory prayer, are you hurting someone? Besides yourself? Are you hitting somebody over the head? Are you stealing their money? Are you cursing them? Are you insulting them? Are you defiling them? No, you're just hurting your own soul. That is what accountability is about. Don't do any injustice. Period. That is what accountability is about. Not doing any injustice. Do not do any injustice. Do not do any injustice. Injustice is never justified. Injustice never has a pretext. There can never be a pretext for injustice. Why? Because of accountability. Because on Judgment Day you will be asked, why did you do that? You're not going to be asked, did you do that because so-and-so made you mad? Did you do that because so-and-so hurt your feelings? Did you do that because so-and-so made you sad? Did you do that because so-and-so? You won't be asked that on Judgment Day. You won't be asked that on Judgment Day. One of the tools of the shaitan is deflection, is distraction, is making the person or making something appear to the person other than what it is. The deception of the shaitan. Because the shaitan knows, because of his experience with human beings, that he's been alive for so long, he's been around them for so long, he's seen the decisions that they make for so long, and he's probably looks down on human beings so much because there have been so many human beings that literally sell out their mothers and their fathers and their children for either wealth or for power or for just something not even like big. Sometimes it's the person they sell out for cheap. There are people they sell out for cheap. And it's happened millions of times, thousands of times throughout the history of humanity. The shaitan knows that one of the last things that the person wants to do is be held accountable, is look at himself in the mirror and say, I was wrong. Is to look at himself and say, I'm the mistake, I made the mistake, I'm the one. That's one of the last things that the person wants to do. Even on Judgment Day. Those that were deceived by the shaitan, those that were led astray by the shaitan, because how does the shaitan lead people astray? He's not a puppet master. He doesn't have his hand, inside of you and moves you around. He just exploits your weakness. He knows, for example, that you love chocolate cake, so he's gonna find a way to use chocolate cake to make you commit a sin, for example. That's just an example. Well, most people, the human beings, they have there is this spectrum of weaknesses that they all most of them share in common, excluding the prophets. The carnal desires, the lust for power, the lust for attention, the lust for being in the spotlight, the lust for having one over others, the lust for being the main one, the lust for being the strongest, the lust for being number one, whatever, popularity. All these things that usually drive the person. So the shaitan uses those things to cause the person to do injustice, not only to himself, but to others. And this is where accountability plays a role. Why? Because the person who thinks, the person who really truly wants to be above, not the fake above. The fake above is doing injustice because, for example, one man's stronger than the other, so he takes his property, takes his money, whatever, takes his honor. But that's injustice. So in reality, he's not above. In reality, he's not the winner. In reality, he's not the conqueror. He's the one that on Judgment Day is going to have to pay. And he's going to be humiliated, and he's going to be degraded. And he's going to be the loser. The one who is truly above is the one who comes out on top in the end. And sometimes even in this life. Because when you do what's right, usually you do still come out on top, even in this life. Even in this life. One way or another. One way or another, it does happen. But for sure, the place where you want to come out on top the most is in the hereafter. Because the hereafter is forever. The right now is temporary. So, the one who thinks and recognizes that his first mission is to make sure that he holds himself accountable first. But what I want to mention before I go on to that next thing is that on Judgment Day, those that were led astray by the shaitan, they will look to the shaitan and they will say, he made us do it. He's the one who, it's his fault. They would blame the shaitan. Still, subhanAllah, after they've been resurrected, after they've seen the angel of death and they've seen the things that they've been tortured with in the grave, they've had their names recorded in Sijjeen, they've been brought back up to the grave, their bodies have decayed, and they're sold back down to Sijjeen, and they come resurrected on Judgment Day. They're led by the two angels, Sa'iq wa Shaheed, and then they're gathered in the place of Al-Mahshar, and they're shown what they do. And even on that day, they will lie. They will say, no, I didn't do that. And then their mouths will be sealed. And Allah Ta'ala will make their organs speak. And their organs will snitch on them. Their organs will say, he did such and such with me on such and such a day. The earth, the ground, the place on earth where they did whatever thing, will snitch on them as well. And they will be shown their book of their deeds. Still, they will try to blame Iblis, subhanAllah. They will try to blame Iblis for that. Subhanallah. But Iblis will say, I'm not the one who did those things. Iblis will say, I'm not the one who did that. You did that. Literally, it says that in the Quran. Iblis will say, I'm not the one who did that. You did that. You're the one who did it. Allahu Akbar. So, that's the accountability. Because we all have a will. Of course, our will is limited. And it is a limited will. It's not a will that just because we will it, that it'll happen. No, it's a will that we actually deliberately do things. We're not like robots. We do not move like our movement that we move, we're doing this movement, it's not imposed on us. This movement that we make, these actions that we do, they're not imposed on us. We're doing it with our will, but our will is limited. Our will is confined to God's will. Whatever God will, and that's what we will. And our will cannot go against God's will. That's what it means that our will is limited. Our will does not overcome or overpower God's will. Our will is compliant, it is under God's will. So if God willed us to do such and such, and that's what we will do. But with our will, we will do it with our will. We won't do it, it won't be imposed on us. It won't be like we're forced to do it. Let's give an example. And then we'll finish, inshallah. Let's give an example. You have a person that, for example, they know that, so they come to a fork in the road. And they know that if they go the right way, that they're safe. That there's no, to them, they know 100% that this is a safe road, but it's a bit longer to get him where he wants to go. And he knows that if he takes the left, it's risky. It's risky. It's shorter, but it's risky. So there is a certain percentage of chance that something will happen, like you'll get a flat tire, for example. So Allah Ta'ala knew in eternity what that person was going to choose. If he was going to choose to go right or left. Allah Ta'ala knew in eternity what this person was going to choose. So Allah Ta'ala willed that this person make the choice that he knew he was going to make. And Allah Ta'ala knew before the person even existed that that person was going to choose which of them he was going to choose. So he made him that way. He made that person that way. He made that person that way because he knew that that person would make that choice. That's the choice he would make. That person with his own will, that's the choice that he would make. That person given the choice, this is what he would choose. So it's not imposed on him. He was not forced to make one choice or the other. He made that choice. But Allah Ta'ala, He knew that that's the choice He was going to make, because Allah Ta'ala knows all things. And nothing is hidden from Him. So He made the choice to go left. He made the choice to go left. With His own will. He chose that. And something happened. He got a flat tire, and his car spun out of control, and then it tipped over because it was an SUV. And you know how those things flip over easily. And he became paraplegic from the neck down. He couldn't move. That wasn't imposed on him. He made that choice to go down that road. That is accountability. So this person can't blame God for now his current situation. He can't go and rebel against God and object to God. Why did this happen to me? Like in an objective way, that would be blasphemy. And it would be absurd. Because nobody told you to do that. Did God order you to go down that path? Did God order you to make that choice? No. Actually, what God ordered is to take the route in which you are sure you are safe. Instead, God ordered you to, let's say, obey and to do good and to follow this and to follow that. But instead of doing that, instead of doing what Allah ordered you to do, you decided to do something else. That is accountability. It is what it is. There is no one to blame except yourself. Now, there are cases where, and as far as accountability, what I mean is there's no one to blame except yourself. You can't blame the shaitan in the sense that the shaitan is not the one who did what you did. The shaitan did influence you and exploit you and did whatever and played you, because the shaitan, that's what he does. That's the shaitan. But like, who's the fool that feeds into the shaitan? That has فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسَهُ. Then let him not blame except himself. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that مَنْ وَجَدَ خَيْرًا فَلْيَحْمَدِ اللَّهِ. Whoever finds goodness within himself, or like manifested, whoever finds goodness manifested from himself, then let him say Alhamdulillah, let him be grateful to Allah Ta'ala. وَمَنْ وَجَدَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسَهُ. Whoever manifests other than that, other than goodness, which is like evil, then let him not blame except himself, because you did that, you chose that, you did that. True, Allah Ta'ala created you and your intention, and He created your action, and He created your organs, but He didn't order you to do that. Actually, He forbade you from doing that. That's accountability. So despite those things, and despite what you feel or whatever catalyst, external factor, still you're accountable for what you do. Now let's take another scenario, because it's important to make the distinction between when someone, their life situation or their circumstances are hard and difficult because of choices that they made, and in a situation where your life is hard and difficult because somebody did something to you. So let's go to that scenario. So the same scenario. Either go right and you're 100% sure it's not risky, or you go left and there is some risk there. And so the person ended up going left, and because it was shorter, and they ended up getting a flat tire, their car spun out of control, their SUV flipped, and they became, what is it? Is it quadriplegic or paraplegic when you can't move from the neck down? You just messed up. Subhanallah. الحمد لله الذي عافانا مما ابتلى بعض الناس به وفضلني عليهم وعلى كثير ممن خلق تفضيلا. We ask Allah to protect us from that, ameen. Because that is the hardship, subhanAllah. And it requires a lot of patience. So, instead of that, right, the person went the safe way. The way that he's sure that it's safe. No risk. And there happened to be a crazy person in the road or whatever, or a drunk driver, this or that, and hit the person. And he became quadriplegic. So he did make the right choice. The person himself, he did make the right choice. He did follow the right path. But because of somebody else's negligence, somebody else's lack of adherence to what is correct, this person now is quadriplegic. Subhanallah. In that case, you don't. Obviously, the blame is for the one who made the mistake. But now you have to live with this situation. The situation of being quadriplegic. Now you have to live with the situation. It's something that was done to you. It's something that you made the right choice, right? In this scenario, we're using it as a metaphor for making the right choice. You made the right choice, but still because of an external factor, something ended up happening to you. Well, now that's similar to like what happens to the prophets. And we mentioned, or it is a fact that the prophets, they are the ones who are inflicted with the most worldly calamities. The prophets, they have the most difficult worldly calamities. Nobody is inflicted with a more severe worldly calamity than them. So, but what did they do? Or how did the prophets react to that? It made them turn to the obedience of their Lord even more. It made them become more obedient slaves. It made them become more virtuous. It made them become better. And these are like real hard calamities. And they did not let any of those things affect their religiosity negatively. So if at that level, if you did in fact make the right choice and you are like 100% free from blame, but still you ended up quadriplegic, still you have to be grateful to your Lord, still you have to not object, still you have to be patient, you still got to pray, you still got to make wudu. How are you going to do it? Either you get assistance or you just pray with your neck, if you can move, or with your head. But to be mad or to object to your Lord, then you wouldn't be justified, even though you made the right choice. Because why? Because things like that happen, and it would just be an opportunity for you to gain reward or for your sins to be erased. Because that is the case of the Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ajaban li amri al-mu'min." He said the Muslim's situation is amazing. If he gets an endowment or something good, and he is grateful to Allah, he gets rewarded. And if he is afflicted with a calamity and he's patient, he gets rewarded. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make us among those who يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ, that they hear the good words and they follow them in the best way. We ask Allah Ta'ala to forgive us and to make us as perfect Muslims, and to make our final words La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So for next week, since the Isha time is getting later and later, the 7:30 class won't begin until 7:45. So instead of 7:30, we'll do 7:45 to begin the class. We'll pray Isha around that time, 7:30, 7:35, etc. And as the time goes later, then we'll do the class and then do the prayer after the class. When the prayer starts to come in like around 8 o'clock, so we'll do the class at still like 7:30, and then we'll pray after the class is over. But for next week, the English class that won't start at 7:30, it'll start at 7:45. inshallah. Barakallahu fikum, nuhallil la ilaha illallah, Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Rabbi ighfir li wa lil mu'minina wal mu'minat. Barakallahu fikum.